inside California prisons, you don't have to break any rules to cause any problems. You can look at somebody wrong, you can say something that offends somebody, and it can make you look weak. But bigger than that, it can make the Asian car look sloppy. And this is exactly what happened to one of the Asian homies that was slipping, and we just had to check him. I first want to start off this video by saying, everything that I speak on, whether it's this video or all my other videos, it's based on my experience, what I went through, and how I perceive things through my eyes. Now, someone that went to prison, they might have had a totally different experience. Maybe when you went to prison, or somebody that did, their experience was completely opposite from what I went through. So everything that I speak about, I just want you to put that in perspective and understand, like, hey, this is me just talking about what I went through and the things that I saw, okay? When people think about getting locked up, they always think it's the same thing. Well, you got to understand, when people get arrested, there's LA County Jail and then there's California prisons. There's two different worlds, two different environments. Inside LA County Jail, it's very chaotic. It's very high stress, and it's a lot of emotions. Okay, inside LA County Jail, you just got arrested. You're still fighting your case. You don't know if you're guilty. You don't know if you're going home. Maybe some people are already sentenced and they're just doing a short sting inside, like, LA County Jail. And bigger than that, when it comes to like the others and the Asians, I'm not sure how it is for every other car, but it's like the streets. So if you're involved in a gang, right, just imagine that, but inside of a building. So the streets are just brought inside this one big old building, and you're more likely than not to run into your enemies. So there's a lot of Asian on Asian, like, gang banging. If you see them, your enemies, oh, it's on sight. So there's a lot of fights going on all the time. And also, in addition to that, the others, we ride with the blacks. So if something were to pop off, then we jump with them. So if they jump, we jump. But here's the difference: when you go to California prisons, it's much more political. It's much more structured. All that Asian on Asian gangbanging stuff, all those fades, stops. It just ends right there. I'm not sure why. That's just the rules. I just followed it. And, that was my experience. And also inside prison, when the blacks jump, we don't get involved in their business, man. It's totally different. Others, we have our own car. And when we have our own problems, they don't back us up. And then same thing, not saying like we're not cordial, and maybe there's like a mutual agreement at times, or at certain yards that we might just go to riot with somebody else, with another car. But for the most part, when the blacks, when they have issues, they deal with it themselves, and then others, when we have our issues, then we handle it on our own. That's the biggest difference. Prison is politics, where jail is high emotions. So when I got locked up in prison, there was this Filipino homie, really cool guy, seemed to be a little bit older, laid back, but the thing was, he didn't work out. Very fat, had a big old belly, had tits, big old round face, his chin, his neck connected, and almost kind of sloppy, when you look at him. And he wasn't that tall either. He was maybe about 5'5", 5'6" on a very good day with some tippy toeing. And the thing was, he was very friendly with the Southsiders. And I can't remember a time when he was actually posted up with the homies. Most of the time that I remember from my experience with him, he was always hanging out with like the Southsiders, laughing all the time, joking, all up in their space. Now let me be clear though, what the Filipino guy was doing, all friendly, all up in their space with the Southsiders like that, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't breaking any rules, but the thing is, inside prison, friendliness has its limits, and when you're Asian and you're that friendly, you're hella friendly with like, another car, everyone sees this. So when I ended up going to prison, I ended up in a cell, okay? I was on a 270 housing unit. I actually just learned that term from one of the comments in my last video, actually. But a 270 living is pretty much, you have the entrance right here, and when you walk in, there's a command center where all the cops are at, the COs. And all along the sides here, there's cells. And because of the overcrowding in prisons, they ended up having some bunk beds outside in the day room. So even though there's jails, there's prison cells all along the wall here, outside is the day room. There's like the TV, or some benches, some tables, but there was extra space here, and there was like bunk beds that they have. And then on the other side, right, where it's split down the middle, it's the exact same thing. It mirrors the same side. There's bunk beds over here. There's some tables. There's some benches where you can sit, and then there's a TV. There's like a shower over here, and for me, I ended up inside of a jail cell, a prison cell, right? That's where I was housed at. But the Filipino homie, he was outside in the area where the bunk beds are at. And, outside where it's at, like it's kind of mixed. Like you have all the races, right? You have the blacks, the whites, the others, you have the South Siders, the North Siders, Norteños in there, they're all in there. And, when it comes to like the bunk living, you're housed with your other race. So even though everyone's mixed up outside, your bunkie would be of your background. It would be with your same car. So if it's like a black, his bunkie would be black. He wouldn't have another ethnicity or race or a different car sleeping with him on that same bunk. And the Filipino was literally right outside my cell, so I can see him. So as soon as I go to my prison door and we have like this little like window, I can look out and I can actually see him right outside. And the thing is, when it comes to the Asians, we're very small inside prisons. Our numbers, we're the minority. Okay, we're not like the blacks or the the Hispanics, the Mexicans, where they have big numbers, right? So everything for us is all about optics. So when one guy looks bad, it kind of makes us all look bad because the effects ripple so much bigger. The impacts are much larger. It's felt more because we're so small. It's kind of like when you're broke. Every dollar you spend, you feel it. We're like, damn, man, I only got $5 left because I just spent 5 on this. But when you're rich and you spend that $5, it doesn't even affect you. So it's the same ripple effect for the others when somebody makes us look bad. So the thing is, it's like with the Filipino homie, he every time we got out of our cells and it's supposed to go to yard and do all this other stuff, he never really hung out with us. The Filipino guy was always joking and laughing, and I get it. Like, you got to understand, the Mexicans as a culture, they have the most laid back culture. So I can get why he would want to, like, he gravitates toward them. They're fun, they're easygoing, you know what I mean? But inside prison, there's a fine line. And it seemed like for people watching from the outside in, it almost seemed like he was so friendly with them, laughing, joking, them all up in his lane, in his space, in his bunk area and everything. It almost seemed like he was switching up because he would never hang out with the homies. And here's another thing to add on top of this whole dynamics, right? Inside prison, people are going home, new people are coming in from different yards, so you constantly see new faces going in and out. Not often, because inside prison, this is kind of like your permanent home until you go home, right? Well, there was an open bunk for one of the homies, and this new guy came in, this Vietnamese guy came in, and he came in from like a 4 yard or something. Like, that's where a majority of his time was, like the higher levels, right? And when you're from that type of environment, you're very structured, you programmed. That's like him, as his core. So when he came onto the yard and he came into like the housing unit, his energy was felt. And everyone kind of like fell in line behind him, like things just kind of got tightened up. So when he came in and he saw this Filipino homie, like on day one, he was like, hey, who is that? Hey, his program's kind of loose, homie. And we're just like, oh man, who's this guy? And he was, he was doing some time. Like, this homie was down for about like 15 years already. So his time was like heavy inside the prison system. So the thing about prison is, like, inside prison, people have this notion where it's very violent, very gritty, very violent, like where things are always happening, where it's like riots and fights. And don't get it wrong, there are a lot of yards and a lot of prisons where that type of environment is true, where it's happening all the time. But where I was at, it seemed a little bit more laid back, at least for the others. We didn't have a lot of drama. The drama mainly came from like the Southerners and the Northerners always getting down. Like, they were always riding, okay? Because I was housed in like Central Cali. Now, that Vietnamese guy came in and did not like his program, and he wanted to like have everyone just DP him. So I said, hey, like, I get that you want to go handle it, but you know what? Let me see if maybe I could think of something a little bit more diplomatic. let me go over and try to talk to him, okay? So we had a little meeting that came about it, and I went over there to go talk to the Filipino guy, but as I was walking over there, I thought about, I was like, man, there's no talking, man. We gotta look strong. So he was on his bunk bed, like in the day room area, and he was laying there, and like the Southsiders are like right next to him, and they're all kind of kicking it. So I go up to him, I just give him a gut check, boom, right in the stomach, like bow. And as soon as I hit him, he was like, like what was that for? Like what the hell? And I just walked away. And I remember him looking like he kind of sat up. He's like, hey man, I'm not a punching bag, homie. And then after that happened, like the Southsiders, they kind of like moved away and they got out of his area and like got out of his his lane. You know, when people think of like these prison checks, they think about ego, they think about pride, right? They put their chest out, but it's not even about that, man. It's all about unity, looking sharp, you know, having people look at us with respect, you know, and it's about not letting one person's behavior paint the whole Asian car as looking weak. That situation and my entire experience of being incarcerated, it really taught me something. And it's that, you know, in normal life, you don't have to politic everywhere, you know, but inside prison, everything you do carries weight. How long you stand somewhere, where you sit to go eat, who you talk to, how you talk to someone, the way you carry yourself, it all means something. Here's the thing, when I got home and I got released, I still behaved as if I was still incarcerated. I still had like that politic mindset, you know? But in regular life, in the real world, it doesn't work that way, man. Like now that I'm back in school and I'm back on campus, none of that behavior flies. Like I can't walk up into a classroom, talk to my professor as if she was one of the homies. Or I can't walk around campus as if like I'm like this gangbanger, you know, with high socks. Like I can't be looking like that. These are our future peers that we're going to be working with in the regular free world. And none of that stuff even matters. Because at the end of the day, nobody really cares if you're a gangster or how tough you actually really are. If there's anything you could take away from this video, it's that like different environments require different versions of you. Okay, so it's like what kept me alive inside prison would like destroy me and ruin me outside here in the free world. So like the real adaptation is, you know, it's just learning how to move with discipline and just understanding that the whole world doesn't revolve around politics, man. So yeah, that's pretty much my story right there. Hopefully you learned a little bit about myself. And if you liked the video, or maybe if, you know, it made you think about the time you were down, or evoke some emotions, or maybe it made you think about a time when you were locked up, or maybe you know someone that's locked up. Heck, or even if you just want to support this channel, there's a subscribe button down below. You can also like the video. You can share this with somebody that might need to hear this story. Heck man, there's even a comment section right there. You can leave a comment to really push this platform out into the algorithm, you know. And for those that don't know about my channel, you know, I'm trying to build a platform where I'm trying to help the younger generation of men and women behind us, right, become better versions of themselves, right, and learn the pitfalls of life through my stories, through my lessons. And if that's something that you want to support and you want to help the younger generation hear this story, hear this message, there's a like button down below. You can also subscribe, you can share it, and again, you can leave a comment in the comment section down there. Until then, you guys take care. Peace.